I'd like to call the Planning and Policy Committee for Tuesday, February 15 to order. First thing on the agenda this morning will be public comment. Please state your name and address and limit yourself to 3 minutes. And I don't see anyone, so we'll move on from public comment. Next to the consent items, it's to approve today's agenda and approval of the minutes of January 18.
So moved.
Support that.
There a motion and support. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion passes. Under action items, the first regarding the Port Sheldon Sports Complex stormwater easement, and the motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the declaration of drainage easement. And I think, excuse me, can I get a motion for that?
So moved.
I'll support.
There a motion and support?
So Greg, developer approached us that's developing the Blended Meadows condominium project in Hudsonville. And they need to drain stormwater from a retention pond to Rush Creek. And they need to just clip the southeast corner of our property where the Port Sheldon Sports Complex is. I mean, it's just I think you saw the diagram in there, just clipping that. So they put together an easement. Doug Van Essen reviewed the easement. I actually presented this information to Joe just to make sure they didn't have any issues with it. They were fine with it. And so in consideration for $500, which really is just reimbursing our legal costs with Doug to review the agreement, we would provide them an easement at the extreme southeast corner of our property to construct and maintain a storm sewer. It's on an undeveloped corner of the property, doesn't impact any of the soccer fields, nothing like that.
That's the one that's contiguous to the, okay.
Courthouse.
Was it, John, and again, and this just for discussion, doesn't mean nothing. Was there any opportunity for, I know when you get out of there and the games are getting done and stuff, and if you want to go westbound on Port Sheldon, it's a faith opportunity because traffic is so busy there. Was there any discussion at all about maybe ingress and egress through their development?
They did, from what he told me, and the direct answer to your question is no, there wasn't discussion on that. But they did say that the city of Hudsonville was requiring that they connect a driveway and sidewalk into the complex. But that driveway was going to be gated off for emergency access use only.
No.
So, but to be honest, I didn't have any conversation about the traffic part. It was really strictly limited, just to be honest with you, with the storm sewer.
I know what Greg is talking about, but I know he just turned right.
Because
Yeah,
it's just- it
you turn
doesn't-
out, it's
It's
hard.
easier to go around the block than try to get left. So, okay,
Yeah, but
good question, Greg.
Okay, just curious. Any additional comments on that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign, motion passes. The next is Ottawa Sands Development, Professional Services. And the motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners a proposal from Riverside Design Group in the amount of $251,600 for the project management, design, construction documents, and construction administration of the Idema Explorers Camp and associated development in accordance with the funding received from the Bill and B. Idema Foundation. Jason.
Thank you. So after we received the gift from the Idema Foundation, we came up with a plan on how to try to implement the design and engineering and then construction of it in multiple phases. And as we went through that process, we sat down then with Karen and her staff and said, well, how can we then design and engineer this the most efficiently? And we did want to retain the company who had helped us with our master plan and some of the original design work because they had been instrumental in some of the parts that the donors felt strongly about. We felt like that was integral to part of the design, but we also wanted to make sure we had a process that was competitive and we would get good pricing. So we worked with Karen and her staff, and then we worked with Doug and Corporation Counsel on the contract. And so that's what we have before you today. So they're managing kind of the overall process. They're managing our the actual design work and process on the outfitted camping, and then they're have bid out different components of the project. So
It's like the entrance drive, some parking, the
Yep.
campground, the your
So-
village.
it'll be phase one, which will include the entry drive all the way down to this area, which will be where the kayak launch is, and then this is our campground area. And it will include this pedestrian pathway here, and then the infrastructure all the way through. This parking, and then some of this parking. And obviously all of this.
So Jason, I'm just asking questions. I'm looking at a chart from you guys, budget summary. The budget summary.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and we're spending $250,000 for the design group. That I understand. Now, are they gonna also work with the village and the treehouse village and all of that too?
So I'm trying to see exactly where you are, Commissioner.
Okay, page 18.
So there,
If it maybe
Okay, go ahead.
Al, for
Yeah.
page 19 is the proposal from Vertus. It's a letter
Yep.
dated January 4th.
Okay,
And so those 7 points there are what they're proposing to provide designing, construction and engineering services for. So you
okay,
have the day use entry, the parking lot, the entry drive, the welcome center, a little non-motorized boat launch area, the yurt village, the tents, the restroom facilities, some drainage, landscape restoration, and some utility work.
okay, so in what Jason pointed out, I call it the east side of the mostly. They're not doing anything on the north or the south, except the entrance, but more or less all of that stuff.
correct.
And the long term is going on the other side too, right?
Correct. And then, so this upcoming, in just a few weeks, we'll be having a public hearing during our Parks Commission meeting in March. We'll be applying for a trust fund grant application to do the trail around the lake.
Okay,
And we'll also be doing another grant application for this restroom building. So, and then we're trying as hard as we can to put ourselves in a good position for any ARPA dollars that become available. So I'm going to Lansing to learn about the state's ARPA dollars, and because we think this would be a good project for those as well. So,
oh, okay.
Is there a timeline, Jason, as to when we would start these projects? Are we looking at this spring or?
well, so we've already been meeting with the engineers and design groups, and then we hope to break ground on this late summer, fall.
Okay.
So with the hope that we can start camping next season. So it
Does-
might not be early.
Does this design firm handle the bids that go out too?
So they will, yep. we
Okay.
will talk about
They'll do all the design work and then they'll oversee the construction and.
Okay, and they'll know how much it should cost before we do
And
anything.
they'll make sure the bids are.
Yeah.
They bid what they're supposed to be bidding and not missing something.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Jason, unrelated question, I gotta ask, the winter time here now, what kind of activities are happening out there? Anything?
right now.
Yeah,
Well, so there's lots of hiking and so it actually gets used a lot. So you might have cross-country skiing. We don't actually groom the trails, but it still gets snowshoeing and cross-country skiing or just hiking. So,
ice skating?
well, if
They got a
I know
shovel.
people have gone out on that inland lake some, but
But ice fishing, anybody fishing that at all?
So they might, so this lake is really deep. It doesn't have very good fish populations. The water quality is really well, but because it's steep and it doesn't have very good, the banks don't have a whole lot of organic material. So we've been working with Audubon, and Audubon secured a SAGO grant. We just don't have the contract with Audubon yet, a sub-grant with them. So we'll be bringing that before you all to start actually some enhancements along the banks, and then doing some wetland enhancements down here as well on the old lagoons to work on the natural resources restoration part of this. But the water quality is excellent, but it just doesn't have a whole lot of good habitat for the fish yet. So, yeah.
Yeah, there is fish in there.
There are, but when they did some surveys, they found that they're stunted. So they're pretty underfed and scrawny and not very healthy.
Okay.
So, yeah. So they were stocked, and so we've been working with Audubon and MSU and DNR on working on that project. So more to come on that one. That's actually really, that'll be one of the more exciting ones we work on. So.
Jason, one more question. Is the 251,000 for the project management, design and construction for all of the phases for Ottawa Sands Area, the day use trail, the drive sag, the camping area, the yard village? Is it all of that for 251,000 that they're helping with and designing and managing?
If you look at the last page of that packet, it breaks it out individually what is included in that 251. So site design, coordination, architecture, and then
Yeah, it's all that for that entrance.
Okay. So
And the driveway there, and for the yurt village, and the utility work and all that. So
okay.
this is obviously not the construction, this is just the engineering.
All right. Exactly. Okay.
So we're the surveying, geotechnical, the materials testing, we're doing that, and we're bidding those out internally, and then we're working on that through ourselves. So.
Any additional questions for Jason? Jason, thank you. So we have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion passes. Under discussion items, legislative issues. John?
Thank you. One bill dropped off this. This was the bill to add the Fifth Circuit Court judge here in Ottawa County, and the governor did sign that.
Okay, good.
So that will go through, and that judge will be elected in November and begin office on January 1st, 2023. A couple things here have been added. One is the sheriff's office's secondary road patrol funding. And they are looking at using the liquor tax, dedicating a portion of the liquor tax to pay for the secondary road patrol funding, rather than there's been charged a $10 fee if you get a ticket that goes towards secondary road patrol funding. And the Michigan Sheriff's Association is supporting this. Sheriff Kemper is supporting this. That they hope that this will provide a bit more revenue for our secondary road patrol funding and have an inflationary increase going forward. Currently, we have 2 deputies that are funded partially by secondary road patrol funding. We still have to supplement it with our own budget as well. We used to have, I believe, 4 deputies that did this, but over time that funding has decreased. So the sheriff is in support of this. There is another bill out there, and we talked about this, not this bill, but this concept of allowing remote participation in an open meeting due to medical conditions. So currently, right now, a member of a public body like the Board of Commissioners can only meet on Zoom if they're away on military duty. This bill would allow if a public a member of a public body is out due to a medical condition, they could also participate, for example, on Zoom. So again, if someone fell and broke their hip and they're recuperating at home and there's a board meeting, they would be able to participate via Zoom. And I think that's what we've talked about over the last couple of years or so. And so we're in support of that. The other bills are basically not much action has taken place other than the bill to make corrections officers eligible for compulsory arbitration, basically Act 312 labor disputes. So we are opposed to that. We feel that ultimately the Board of Commissioners should ultimately decide, a wage and benefit package for our employees and not some outside arbitrator. This has passed the House quite overwhelmingly, 97-10, and it just came out of committee in the Senate. So we're not super optimistic on this one. And I know the sheriff will be talking to Senator Victory to express our opposition to it, and hopefully he would oppose it as well. But this one we're not as optimistic about, to be frank with you. Everything else there is
Which one is?
that's number 7. The bottom of the second page. So and we just add right now, corrections officers are not subject to mandatory arbitration. If we run into a dispute during labor negotiations, this would allow them to do so. And that way, if we don't come to an agreement, it could go to arbitration. An outside arbitrator then decides.
Are the police unions under this? I mean, the sheriff's union, are they with this too, or don't they have arbitration either?
Some of our union groups do have already Act 312 arbitration. This would simply add to the definition. So like a road patrol deputy, for example, already has arbitration.
Okay.
This would now add corrections officers as another group of employees that would be eligible for compulsory arbitration. And again, we feel ultimately the Board of Commissioners should decide this, not some outside arbitrator. Other than that, though, everything else here, there hasn't been much movement on it since the last month.
John, on that first one, the sheriff's office secondary road funding. Unless I'm wrong, but I think the LRE substance abuse, this is where they get their money.
The convention and facilities tax, I believe it is.
PA $2,
Yeah,
50%.
That's liquor tax.
Yes, 50% has to be used for substance use.
Yes.
And that, so we send that off to the LRE, who then makes grants.
Yeah. So what's this? Taking that money away from them, or?
I don't know if there's other uses for that before the state allocates our portion for the PA $2. I'm not sure.
I think it's just setting aside a portion of that money for this purpose, not
Okay.
all of it.
Since you said, Carrie, we only get 50% of the tax.
We get, I don't know how much is
It's
the
one-
percentage of the tax we get, but of the dollars that we get, 50% goes to substance use disorder, 50% supports the general fund.
Okay. Okay.
But I don't know of the pool, how much
Okay.
that share is.
I think we get a, relatively low percentage of the overall pool, but whatever amount we get from that tax, we get to keep 50% for general fund, and 50% goes
Okay.
to substance abuse.
But in,
Because I think some of that was used for Cobo, the bond
Yes.
issue or something
Yep.
years ago.
what's the, where the Red Wings used to play?
Joe Louis Arena?
Yes, that money was helped to build that, pay for it and everything. And that got paid off.
Mhm.
I think some of it's still going to Little Caesars.
Yeah, I don't know.
I thought they figured, they said, well, we just moved some of that money over, so.
So maybe that's coming to an end or something. So they're trying to allocate it differently.
Yeah, and this is fine if everybody stays whole. You
Right.
get what I'm getting?
Yeah,
at?
yeah,
I mean,
and-
I don't,
And we believe it will keep us whole and maybe give us a little bit more funding and a little
Okay,
more
yep,
stable funding.
I'm fine, and I will keep on buying scotch in supporting that bill.
Thank you,
Okay,
Al.
I know,
appreciate it.
I'll sacrifice, for that, so,
Always doing your part.
yes, thank you.
Anything else on that, John?
No.
Okay, the
I have
net,
a question, Greg.
yeah, I'm sorry, Greg.
John, any ideas to where the governor is on signing a short rental bill if it goes through the Senate and all that?
She has been very, the last I checked with Bob, quiet
Quiet about
on that.
it. Okay,
So I'm not 100% sure what her position is.
okay.
Because I mean, there's pretty strong opinions on both sides of this issue. It's not a clear cut.
Is that
That's the short-term rental.
oh, you mean she didn't sign that bill?
Yeah, well, it hasn't
Gone through yet.
It hasn't gone
Well,
through
the
the Senate.
House voted it.
Yeah. It has not gone to the governor yet.
So it's still in the Senate then
Yeah.
at this point.
And she is not, last time I checked with Bob, and I haven't checked with him too terribly recently, she has been silent. It's not
Okay.
given a position on it.
I
The
know-
Realtors Society or group
Wants
is
it.
really pushing on this.
And a lot of the local governments are really pushing back, saying this should be a local decision,
Thank you.
not a statewide decision.
Yeah, I know it's a big issue at Park Township. So,
It's, yeah, for many communities, especially those with a lot of, along the lake shore
Right,
with
exactly.
tourism and stuff, it's a huge issue.
Okay,
that's it, yeah.
and then the second thing is the live streaming of rules committee.
Yeah, so we wanted to, if you recall, I think it was Commissioner Zylstra had indicated that he would like to see the Rules Committee live stream like we do with our other 4 committees, Planning and Policy, Finance, Talent and Recruitment, and Health and Human Services. And the board, if you recall, the Board of Commissioners back in October agreed to live stream those 4 committees. And so Commissioner Zylstra, and I think it was at our organizational meeting, said, hey, I think we should also live stream our Rules Committee because it's considered a standing committee along with those other 4. But the board was specific back in October saying, these are the 4 meetings we will live stream. And so that's why with the Rules Committee, it has not been live streamed. And the other thing with the Rules Committee is it meets generally only a couple times a year. So our board rules say that the committee has to meet and present a first draft of the board rules to the board in September. And then it submits a second or final reading of the board rules in November. And then you guys ultimately vote on them at our organizational meeting in January. So it generally will meet 2, maybe 3 times a year and probably won't meet next until August. So sometime before that September 1st reading. So the discussion that, if you recall, the organizational meeting was to bring this up at a Planning and Policy Committee meeting to discuss whether or not you want to see the Rules Committee meeting live streamed or not.
Gentlemen,
I'm not for that at all, but I'm gonna go one step back. It was never part of the 4 committees. It got added. I don't know how it got added to the 4 committees. There's other committees that we're on. Are we gonna, okay, I'm on the food safety for the restaurants on that one. Okay, so now we're gonna live stream that one. Because we could just slip it in on one of these meetings. This should have never been on the final 4. I don't know how it got on there, but we voted on it because we added rules to our board rules, 500 pages.
I think it had been, part of the standing committee, but I mean, the board back in October did not say we want to live stream our standing committees. The board said in October, we want to live stream the following 4 committees. And that's what you approved. So you did not approve back in October to live stream the Rules Committee.
The reason why I said it shouldn't be part of the 4, because we don't get a chance to sign up for this committee. Do we?
It's every 2 years when we have a new election and then all the commissioners are re-elected or not elected, but then we get a chance to select what committees we'd
Yeah.
like to be considered
Right,
for.
and that is not
Yep.
on there.
Right, because I don't think it was part of a committee last time in 2020 or whenever that
I know,
was.
and we didn't, it was in there. We never changed
Yeah.
that, but I know what you're saying.
Well, I agree with Al in the sense that, I also will oppose this only because I don't think the Rules Committee is I think it's an internal committee.
Yes.
Basically, it's not a committee where we're making public policy. So, I guess I would propose that we somehow come up with a way on how we remove that committee as being a standing committee, if
Well,
that's possible.
Well, what you can do is, and again, it's 5 members, 2 of whom must be the board chair and vice chair. And so what you could do is the rules committee could, if you want, propose for the September 1st reading that the rules committee not be a standing committee and be a
That's right.
standalone committee,
Yes,
or lack of a better
exactly.
term, but
Exactly.
that's when, and then you'd have a second reading of that in November, and then you could vote on that in January.
I also believe, John, if I'm correct, that under the Open Meeting Act, that we really don't have to live stream any of our meetings if we don't want, because we don't have a quorum of county commissioners on any of the committees, including the standing committees, and us having live streaming, and at least those 4, I think, is a good sign of us being open and transparent with committees where we're actually making public policy. And not all of those are we making, public policy. We don't make any policy, suggestions in a talent and recruitment meeting, but we still allowed that as well.
Yeah, and Doug Van Essen's opinion is our committees are not subject to technically to the Open Meetings Act because they don't make any final decisions. They're only making
Exactly.
recommendations. And although we do tend to follow the Open Meetings Act with our committees, we post them, they're open to the public. We live stream our top 4 committees. But Doug Van Essen would say that's technically not subject to OMA because they're not making any final decisions.
And if I'm correct, John, any suggestions that we make in the Rules Committee actually comes before the whole board at one time, which at that point, it gets made public as to what those rules
It
are.
actually goes to the full board a couple times.
Right.
Actually, 3
Yeah.
times. Your first reading of any changes would come in September to the whole board.
Mhm.
You'd have a second reading of those changes to the full board in November. And then the full board would actually vote on those changes at the
January.
organizational meeting in January.
Okay. I mean, I see no reason for it, to be honest.
No, I don't know.
And I'm with you guys too. I see no reason to have.
And again, this was a discussion item at your,
Yeah,
at the board's
remember that,
request,
yeah.
so.
And we were gonna do it in January, but you were on vacation.
Yeah.
And you wanted to move it to this one.
Yep.
So you could be.
Yeah, because there's not a
No.
rush, because the
No,
board, the
there's a-
rules committee won't meet probably till August.
August, that's right.
Right,
That's right.
so.
So is there a motion that's necessary from this committee today saying that we're not proposing this or not
Either
supporting this?
that, or, and I don't know, as chair, Greg, if at the board meeting, you can say, hey, at last week's planning and policy committee meeting, we had a discussion about live streaming the rules committee, and it was the consensus of the committee to not do that.
Either way is fine with me. If you want to make a motion, that's fine too, Frank.
Now, again, and I'm just,
Yeah,
I know we had where we try not, this was a discussion item, not an action item.
Right.
And so we try to minimize
Yep.
mhm.
Yep.
adding things. So.
Because otherwise somebody's gonna be saying at our board meeting,
Let's just
this
have
wasn't on
let's
the
have this
agenda.
Discussion at the,
But I think you can just update the board on,
Yeah.
hey, here's what happened during our discussion.
who's our vice chair of this? You, yeah,
No, I don't think.
Phil
so.
is,
Phil is.
or of what the,
planning policy.
Phil,
Phil.
I may be late for Tuesday's meeting, so somebody else may have to fill in to make, you want to use 2 guys can do that otherwise?
yeah, we can let out,
Okay.
if Phil's not here either.
Which one? The first one in March or the next?
No,
one?
this next meeting. coming up.
Okay, yeah.
The 22nd. Okay, we all set with that?
Yep.
Good.
Good.
Just if, before you get to public comment, I just wanted, while Jason's here, for some of you that may or may not be aware of this, we have been working with the road commission about acquiring a parcel of property by Riverside Park.
Yeah.
We refer to it, I believe, as Lot 4.
Yeah.
I believe it is. And road commission was willing to sell it for a lot more than what we thought it was worth.
Yeah.
And long story short, we agreed to have an appraisal done.
Yep.
And we would live or die by the results of the
Yeah.
appraisal, where we'd either buy it for the result of the appraisal or walk away and say we're not interested. So the appraisal came back recently, within the last week, I believe. And it came in at, I think, $236,000 for the, now I didn't read the whole appraisal, so just keep that in mind.
Oh,
So,
boy, knocked me over. That's just crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Closer to what the road commission wanted than what we were willing.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. And so we said, we either buy for that or we walk away, and the road commission is asking, what we want to do. Could we give them an answer within the next 120 days or so? So I know the road commission is also offering this easement through an adjacent lot, which was less desirable because it's not along the riverfront, and it's a pretty steep ravine that would cause our construction costs to be significantly higher than through lot 4, where the construction costs could almost make up for the savings in your acquisition costs. So that's something we're taking a look at. And Jason, is that something you're going to be discussing with the Parks Commission as well?
So we have a planning committee this afternoon and we'll discuss it. And one of the things, so we did, our Parks Commission, we hired an appraisal also that had a considerably lower return, but our appraiser, they had since had a survey done that confirmed a few things. So there was some water frontage that they confirmed and a few other things. So, but we're still going through it. We just got at the end of last week.
So, hang on a minute. Okay. Parks had an appraiser.
Yes.
Okay. And who hired this appraiser?
Road Commission.
Okay.
Well, and
I'm just gonna say that with a residential person, okay, they hire an appraiser. Hey, I want you to appraise my house. You know something? It's gonna be high because he's gonna make that person happy. Now comes the bank and the appraiser works for the bank. And he comes and looks at it. Oh, yeah, well, I don't know. I think it's only worth this much. And everybody's saying, why is there a big difference? Because it depends who you hired who. They're working for that person.
And Jason, I don't know if you want to kind of touch on the selection, because it was an appraiser that agreed to appraise this according to the Department of Natural Resources standards for trust fund grants.
We had asked them to make sure to ensure that it would qualify for a natural resources trust fund grant. So there were some parameters that they would have to meet. I did provide some comps. So we had local comps as well as several other comparables. So without completely micromanaging the process, we felt like we gave them a whole lot of input. It took them an awful long time we haven't followed back up and met with the road commission yet, but it took them an awful long time to get us the appraisal report back. So
They're coming back slow.
yeah.
All of them are. So, and now, okay, I'm just working with Zealand Board of Public Works, and they got a house and they want to buy it. The owner knows it, okay? And I know how I'm gonna suggest them how they come up with a price is, homeowner, you find your appraiser, Board of Public Works finds their appraiser, and we split the difference.
Yeah, and I think Greg was part of this meeting with the road commission, maybe Phil too, I don't recall, but the agreement we had with them is we'll get this appraiser that will appraise it pursuant to DNR specs for trust fund.
Right.
And that we would, whatever that appraisal amount was, is the county would either buy for that or walk away.
Okay.
That was our agreement. And so.
And it was supposed to be, and it's, my understanding was an unbiased appraisal person. Nobody had a relationship with the road commission.
Okay.
And nobody had a relationship with the county. So,
Right. So we'll have to, I know they're gonna discuss this at in the parks world as well here. Just some of the things we have to balance is if we do accept the road, if we go with the alternative, which was I don't know what it was, a 30-foot wide easement through one of the adjacent lots. The construction costs will be significantly higher. So the money you save on the acquisition, you get eaten up in construction. And two, just if you actually go out to the site, yes, it's technically would be road commission property, but the easement and the pathway would literally look like you're going through this person's front yard. Because this person has probably had a front yard that technically has not been his, but for all intents and purposes, it looks like a front yard, talks like a front yard. So you'd have this trail going right through someone's front yard, even though legally it's not his front yard. So I just know from experience that can cause a lot of angst and angry people.
And unfortunately, a lot of those angry people come to their county commissioner, not to the road commission.
Right.
That's right.
Right. So I just want you to know that, I mean, legally we'd be fine. But when you go out there and go, wow, that goes right through his, and it's not his, but his front yard. It's not ideal. Let's just put it that way.
Jason, how are we planning on utilizing that property if we had acquired that, or if we acquire it? Is it for just an easement purpose, or?
Well, I think the initial is it's really the next essential part for us to be able to connect in with the western part of Bass River. So as we work with the state on trying to connect with that western part of Bass River, we have to finalize this. And we just had a great meeting with the folks with DNR last week, and in order to finalize their route and get the surveys and the permitting done with DNR, we have to nail this route down. So we need either the easement defined or acquire this property and build it. So and then I think as you look, and I took John out there, you have one of the most spectacular views over that lake at the end of North Cedar Drive. And I think really as you look at in 20 or 30 years, that's going to be something that we'll want to have as an access point to the trail, but it's also somewhere where we want to be able to have an overlook over that as a public access point or trailhead for the park. And if not, as we walk down there, you can see where there's only a really small footprint where you could actually build a house. And your trail would likely be really close to it. It's really close to where the property lines run. So I think it would be in our best interest to secure that lot just for public purposes in the future. So
anyone who buys that property, it's just wide enough, big enough for a house or a couple of homes, or
one house.
one house. And so that person then would have to comply with any DNR concerns and obligations, or?
Well, and so I think the steps, so the road commission owns this property, and it has not been approved for building yet, is my understanding with Robinson Township. So although they are working on having it split into lots, I think and I believe the last I knew is they had a contract on one of them, although I don't know if it's been sold yet. I would have to confirm that. There were 5 parcels there. So
let me ask an unsensitive and probably not a politically correct question here. We've had cases where we have not always been in agreement with owners when we wanted access to certain property in order for a trail or an easement and so forth. And we have considered the option of just saying, well, we're going to take legal action.
You need there has to be a public purpose for the land, which,
we have.
And then you have to have just compensation. And, so here you're facing an appraisal that says $236,000, and that may be tough to overcome.
Okay.
And
They could add 20% to that, right?
well, yeah,
but
yeah.
you
Good.
And we had just to be fair, we had a couple kind of contentious meetings with the road commission and came up to this agreement
Mhm.
to do it this way. And
Either we
so,
walk or we buy it.
yeah, so I mean, we did put our, you know, our word down, and I don't think we want to just throw that away, and it's in a written
Was it-
email that
Was it
says.
you or was it Al that made that agreement?
That's a good question.
It was us, and, you know,
I
and
think
Greg's
it was
aware of
Al.
this too. We followed up with an email, and so that was what we decided to do, and to me, we should live up to
Right.
our word.
Yeah,
Either
I
we
agree.
buy it or
Yeah.
we don't.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think, right, I think the part about that is that we don't have an argument for, we can build around it. It doesn't, it's not unbuildable. I think in the other cases where we've made that argument, it would be impractical or almost next to impossible to build the trail without certain parcels. This case, it's expensive and it would really impact it, but yeah, we could still do it.
So we can go around it, but it'll be close to that property. So whoever buys that property should know that the parks or the county will likely be building
It'd be close, and again, the road commission's willing to give us an easement at no cost on an adjacent parcel. But it, just where that would go is you're going down, now this trail will be going down a pretty steep cliff, which you gotta now zigzag, and it would appear
Yeah,
to
that's
the
pretty
naked
narrow.
eye that you're going through a guy's front yard with this trail, even though it's not his front yard. So.
John, would there be any contingencies on this as far as like a
Yeah,
perk test or?
it's a tight spot.
On the appraisal,
No, on the purchase agreement of this lot. Let's just say that the lot did, we found out from the health department, the lot did not perk.
yeah, that, and I don't know what contingencies are on there.
Because if it doesn't perk,
Okay.
then they really don't have anything.
Then it's
that's
not
really-
buildable and the value
Uh-huh,
goes down.
They can put a garage on there.
yeah, but not for 230,000, 235,000. It would be fun to find out if it perked or not.
Okay, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So this is the house that he's talking about.
Oh.
So the Parks Commission that will make
That we're
a
buying.
decision.
Yeah, they're gonna discuss, I mean, we just got this, so I thought, hey, I'll
Okay,
just throw it
Jason,
out to you just for.
Okay, that
I'm not
one
looking
right
for an
there.
answer,
The one
just
that
more
you're talking
FYI,
about.
and the
Okay.
Parks Commission's gonna be
If-
discussing it. And then
If,
I believe at some point.
the road
I'll
commission
ultimately be
wasn't
coming back
involved.
to you.
And the parks wasn't involved, and you had unlimited money, you yourself. Would you like to build on that lot? Would it be a nice lot to build on? I mean, you get what I'm saying? I mean,
Well, so you're gonna be right on, so
They should be a little bit.
Boat Beach right
That was
there.
the argument.
okay, yeah,
Greg
Boat
and
Beach
Bill
right
and
there,
I and
right
others gave to
And
them.
there's footpaths that walk.
So-
all
oh,
along.
around there. So you're gonna have people,
We have a-
And
also a duty to
all
try
along, the original
to get as
easement.
much money as we can to help repair roads. This is one
Yeah.
way we
And
do
we
it.
talked to them
So-
about that.
Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We agreed, let's get it.
But they don't wanna do that.
Well, I think once I gave it to them in writing, it made it real. And there's, right, it's a real scenic value, but, so I think if somebody has to understand, it's going to be a very popular place for the public using that lake, because that lake gets used heavily for water skiing and boating and swimming. And that's right, an old quarry, so they mined it out. And so people, right, boat up the river and go there to water ski, is my understanding. And then they ice fish and fish in there, and so kayak
It's not
there.
gonna be a secluded, quiet place
Oh, no,
for anyone.
Not at all.
Yeah, so I think,
Right in the front yard.
yeah, and the only building spot is like right on that corner of that property line. And so, yes, I think it's a nice lot. I probably wouldn't want it because, right, you're gonna sit on your deck and you're gonna have folks all the time right there, so.
so if we walk and let it sit there for a couple of years, the thing will sell? Greg, what do you think?
You know, it's a big part of the puzzle, you know, and I hate to have anybody get ambitious and hold us up anymore, Al. I mean, there's been a lot of work to get us this far. And I'll be honest, you know, I agree. I think that's a tremendous amount of money. But when you look at the overall picture of the millions of dollars that we're spending on parks and making this trail run through, it's probably not that as big of a deal.
Well, we need, so because we're working with the state and we need to make progress on Bass River, and they're bringing their trails folks and their grant folks to the table to help us with the Bass River, we needed to kind of pin this up. And so that came out of that meeting we had with DNR. So, and I think that it was good that we got this as well, because that we can start working on a decision. So.
So no, like this may be coming back to you,
Yeah.
but for today's purpose, it was just more FYI.
Yeah, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. That's not cheap.
No, it's not. But again, for the overall picture, I think that probably makes sense. So moving on to public comment, a second opportunity for public comment, and I don't see anybody. So we're, and before we adjourn, anybody else have anything today that we want to discuss? Al?
Nope.
Right? Okay. Right. All those in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.